My name is Harper Quinn. I'm 29 years old and I used to believe that if you were kind, worked hard and did right by people, the universe would return the favor. I don't believe that anymore. It's strange how fast your entire life can fall apart. One moment I was planning a spring wedding at a vineyard just outside Philadelphia. My dress hung on the back of my bedroom door like a promise. The next I was sitting alone in that same room, staring at an empty closet and a drained bank account, trying to convince myself I wasn't stupid for trusting a man who vanished with everything we'd built. Daniel, my ex-fiancé, left me 2 weeks before our wedding. No note. No explanation. Just vanished. He didn't just break my heart. He emptied our joint savings, took the rent money and ghosted me like I never existed. My phone calls went unanswered. His office said he resigned. His family refused to talk. I was left with unanswered questions, a ruined reputation, and the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. The worst part, everyone thought I had to know. That I had to be in on it. My landlord gave me 1 week to leave. The nursing job I loved let me go under the pretense of emotional instability, and I didn't even fight it. I couldn't afford to. I was too tired. Too humiliated. So when I found a listing online for a live-in caretaker position at a private estate in Vermont, room, board and high pay included, I applied before I could talk myself out of it. No references needed. Discretion preferred. Sounded like a scam. But when you're broke, broken and desperate, even red flags start to look like lifelines. The job description was vague. Assist with daily needs and light personal care for a private client recovering from an accident. The estate belonged to a man named Eliot Blackwell, a billionaire who'd reportedly been paralyzed in a private plane crash 8 months prior. I didn't know much about him except what the internet told me. Tech genius, heir to the Blackwell shipping fortune and wildly private. The media called him a recluse even before the accident. Post-accident, he disappeared entirely. A car picked me up from the train station the morning I arrived. A black SUV with windows so dark I couldn't see the driver's face. The GPS showed no clear destination. Just a dot moving deeper into the woods. The last sign of civilization was a sleepy general store and a wooden sign that read, "Welcome to Haven Ridge." 40 minutes later, the SUV pulled through an iron gate flanked by stone wolves. The estate loomed in front of us like something out of a Gothic novel. It wasn't just big, it was massive. 3 stories, high arching windows, a wraparound porch with ivy crawling up the columns. It felt haunted, and not just by ghosts. By something heavier, sadder. The housekeeper, a woman named Darlene, greeted me at the front door. She was in her 60s, stiff-backed with sharp eyes and a polite smile that never quite reached them. "Rules are simple," she said without asking me how the trip was. "Keep to your assigned quarters. Be punctual. Mr. Blackwell values routine. You'll have Sundays off unless noted otherwise. Breakfast at 8, physical therapy at 10, lunch at 1. Dinner at 7. You'll assist with meals, meds and evening checks. He doesn't like small talk, so don't offer it." I nodded, gripping my duffel bag like it could anchor me to something solid. "You're here to do a job, Miss Quinn," she added as she handed me a keyring with a small tag that read Caretaker. "Don't try to fix things that aren't broken. And stay out of the West Wing." Stay out of the West Wing? I blinked, but she'd already turned and started walking. I met Eliot that evening. Darlene led me into a room that looked more like a study than a bedroom. Dark wood paneling, leather-bound books, and a fireplace that burned even though it was spring. He sat in a custom motorized wheelchair, wearing a black sweater and tailored slacks. His hair was dark, neatly combed. His jaw was sharp and still, but his eyes, they were steel. Cold and calculating. "This is Harper Quinn, your new caretaker," Darlene said. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "You're younger than I expected." "I'm a registered nurse," I said quickly. "I have 6 years of hospital experience." He nodded once. "You'll need more than hospital experience here." I waited for him to explain, but he didn't. Instead, he turned his chair toward the window and spoke without looking at me. "Routine is everything. I don't like surprises. I don't like incompetence. If you're looking for some sob story to tell your friends about the rich cripple, spare me. Do your job, stay out of my business, and we won't have any problems." That was my welcome. That night, I unpacked my things in the caretaker's quarters. Small, clean, and windowless. I tried to sleep but the house made strange noises. Humming from the walls. Footsteps that didn't belong to me. Once I thought I heard whispering in the hall. I told myself it was just the creaks of old wood, the wind outside, the nerves in my chest that hadn't stopped vibrating since I got there. But when I turned off the light, I saw a shadow in the corner that looked too tall, too still to be furniture. And I swear it moved. If you're hooked on this story already, or if Harper's journey hits home for you in any way, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss the next chapter. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. The next morning started with silence. Not the peaceful kind that wraps around you like a blanket, but the kind that presses against your eardrums and makes you feel like you're being watched. The kind that doesn't belong in a house full of people. Because even though I hadn't met anyone else yet, a place this big couldn't possibly run on just Eliot, Darlene, and me. I woke up before my alarm, my body still wired from the shadow I thought I saw the night before. I turned on every light in the room just to be sure. Nothing was there. My phone had no service, but the estate had a landline in the hallway I wasn't allowed to use without permission. That wasn't the only rule. I'd already been reminded by a note slid under my door in the night. Handwritten in block letters. Breakfast at 8. Don't be late. Darlene. I didn't eat much. Just dry toast and coffee that tasted like it had been filtered through regret. Darlene sat across from me, sipping tea with a posture so perfect it looked painful. She didn't speak unless she had to, and when she did, it was clipped, controlled, and always layered with judgment. You'll accompany Mr. Blackwell to therapy this morning, she said as she set her cup down. His physical therapist will meet you in the rehab room. Down the east hallway, second door after the oil painting. The oil painting? You'll know it when you see it. I did. A massive, gilded monstrosity of Eliot standing beside a woman with cruel eyes and a forced smile. His sister, I guessed. Camilla Blackwell. I'd seen her name in articles. Vice President of Blackwell Holdings, the Ice Queen of Logistics, One Piece had called her. She didn't smile with her eyes. Neither did Eliot, come to think of it. He was already in the therapy room when I arrived, positioned near a set of parallel bars. A man in scrubs, tall, lanky, and slightly balding, stood beside him flipping through a chart. You're Harper, the therapist said. I'm Thomas. You can help support him when he moves between stations. You've done mobility assistance before. Yes. 6 years as a pediatric nurse. Different weight class, but the principles are the same. Eliot's stronger than he looks, just stubborn. I'm right here, Eliot said dryly. You don't have to talk about me like I'm unconscious. Thomas gave a tight-lipped smile but didn't apologize. Instead he turned to me and said, he can bear partial weight on his legs but don't expect miracles. Just help with balance. He falls, he fractures something, you're the one writing the report. No pressure. Therapy was a quiet war between Eliot and his own body. I watched him grit his teeth with every motion, every lift, every reluctant step. His hands curled tight around the bars as sweat beaded at his temples. He didn't complain. He didn't yell. But the tension in the room was volcanic. Once I tried to offer him water. I said no interruptions, he snapped. His voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to slice through me. Thomas didn't flinch. I realized then that this wasn't new. Eliot pushed people. Tested limits. If you bent, he lost respect. If you broke, you were gone. When therapy ended, he rolled back from the bars and looked at me like he was measuring something. You didn't cry, he said. I'm not 12. His mouth curved into the faintest smirk, then disappeared like it had never existed. Darlene will give you the schedule. Don't hover. I hate hovering. Hovering, apparently, was defined as standing within 10 feet of him unless asked otherwise. After lunch, I was sent to organize his medication tray, and that's when I found the first discrepancy. One of his pill bottles was completely full, unopened, sealed. But the log in the medical file said he'd been taking that dose twice daily for 2 weeks. Either the log was fake or someone was lying. I reported it to Darlene. She stared at me with a long, unreadable expression. That bottle was delivered late. We adjusted accordingly. But the log. Miss Quinn, she interrupted, her voice now cold enough to frost windows. You are not here to audit Mr. Blackwell's files. You are here to assist and observe. Please stay within your scope. That was the end of that conversation. Later that afternoon, I passed one of the ground floor drawing rooms on my way to the linen closet and overheard voices. "She's perfect," someone whispered. Then Eliot's voice, lower, sharper. "That's what worries me." I stopped just outside the doorway, my heart thudding. Camilla's voice came next, unmistakably crisp and cool. "You always expect betrayal, even from the help." "I expect what's statistically probable," Eliot said. Camilla laughed, quiet, humorless. "If she's smart, she'll stay in line." My spine stiffened. I moved on before they could sense me lingering, but those words followed me like ghosts down the hallway. By the time dinner rolled around, I wasn't hungry. I sat with my untouched soup, pretending to eat, while Eliot and Camilla ate in a tense silence at the other end of the long formal table. I wasn't invited to sit with them. My seat was at the far end, like a child at Thanksgiving dinner. From where I sat, I could barely hear what they were saying, but I caught snippets. "Handled discreetly. Not another Martha situation. Still have that footage." "Footage?" I leaned forward slightly. Camilla's eyes lifted and met mine. A beat passed. Then she smiled. The first smile I'd seen from her. It didn't reach her eyes. "You've barely touched your food, Harper," she called sweetly down the table. "I'm not feeling well," I said quickly. "Must be the mountain air," she said. "It has that effect on some people. Makes them unsettled." I forced a smile. "I'm sure I'll adjust." "I'm sure you will." After dinner, I helped Eliot back to his suite. He was quiet, watching me from the corner of his eye. When I knelt to remove his shoes, he asked suddenly, "Do you scare easily?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't think so. We'll see." He didn't elaborate. Just dismissed me with a nod, and I left, the door closing behind me like a vault. That night I couldn't sleep. The humming came back, louder this time. Like machinery running behind the walls. I followed it, barefoot and quiet, down a hallway I hadn't been down before. North side, past the conservatory. There was a door, heavy, locked. The hum came from behind it. I pressed my ear against the wood. It was definitely a generator or some kind of large equipment. But why hide it behind a sealed door? And why wasn't it on the schematics Darlene showed me earlier? As I turned to leave, I saw something in the reflection of a tall glass cabinet across the hall. A figure. It was there just behind me. For a moment I thought it was my own reflection, but it didn't move the way I did. I spun around. No one there. I ran back to my room, locked the door, and didn't sleep at all. In the morning I found another note slid under my door. "Curiosity is dangerous here." No name. No handwriting I recognized. Just a warning. That day the schedule was different. No therapy. No meals with Eliot. Darlene said he was indisposed, and instructed me to deep clean the reading room instead. I found the piano there, dusty, closed, untouched. Inside the bench was a locked compartment. I wouldn't have noticed it except that the cushion lifted unevenly. I pried it up. A letter. Yellowed, crumpled, and stuffed into the corner like someone had hidden it in a rush. It was addressed to no one. "They're watching me. Every step. Every word. I can't prove anything yet, but I know what they're doing. If you find this, be careful. It starts with missing meds and ends with a ruined life. They pick people like us. Women no one will miss, women with no backup, no power. They make you look crazy. Or dangerous. Or both. My name is Martha. I was here before you. And I made the mistake of trusting them." My blood turned cold. Martha. The name they whispered the night before. I read the letter 3 times, then shoved it into my sock and buried it at the bottom of my laundry bag. Someone had been here before me. Someone who noticed the same things I was starting to see. And now she was gone. But I wasn't going to make the same mistake. Not again. The letter didn't leave my side. I folded it into a square so small it could sit under my tongue if I had to hide it. I didn't even keep it in my room. I wrapped it in plastic and slipped it into the lining of my jacket, just in case someone searched my things again. And I say again because I was sure now that someone had been in my room. I always folded my bath towel a certain way, twice lengthwise, then once over the bar. When I got back from the reading room that day, it was hung backwards. Inside out. A tiny thing. A nothing. Unless you're looking for something, then it's a message. I spent the next few days going through motions with dead eyes. I smiled, I nodded, I did my job. I attended therapy sessions with Eliot, ate tasteless meals with Darlene, and avoided Camilla entirely. But inside, something in me had changed. The girl who came here just looking to survive had died in the hallway outside that humming door. The one still standing was quietly planning. I started keeping mental notes. Times, sounds, locations, even expressions. I learned Eliot's schedule down to the second. When he liked his tea. When he got restless in therapy. When he retreated to his private office, always alone, always locking the door behind him. I started to wonder. If he really needed as much help as they claimed, why did he refuse so much of it? One evening after dinner, I pretended to be sick and excused myself early. I waited 10 minutes, then crept back down the west wing. I'd been told to stay away from it since the beginning, so of course that's exactly where I had to go. The hallway was dim like the rest of the house, lit only by wall sconces that buzzed faintly. The air here was different, cooler, like it had been sealed off for a while. At the end of the corridor was a heavy door with a brass handle and no visible lock. It was open. Just slightly. I pushed it with 2 fingers and stepped inside. What I saw didn't make sense. It was a bedroom. Not dusty or abandoned, lived in. A fresh water glass on the nightstand. A book flipped open face down on the bed. The closet ajar, revealing expensive suits and dress shoes neatly arranged. I knew Eliot's room. It was on the other side of the house. This wasn't a guest room either. This was someone's real room. And then I noticed the picture frame on the desk. It was Camilla, sitting on a beach, smiling, not that cold practice smile but a real one. She was holding a man's hand. The frame had been flipped face down like someone didn't want to look at it anymore. But it wasn't the photo that made my stomach twist. It was the other one underneath it. It was Martha. I'd never seen her before, but I knew. Her name was scrawled on the back of the photo. Faulkner, 2021. She was in scrubs, standing next to Eliot, smiling like she still trusted the world. The photo was creased and ripped in one corner, as if someone had once tried to tear it in half but couldn't go through with it. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat upright in bed with the lamp on, jumping at every creak in the floorboards. I thought about the photo, the sealed pill bottle, the humming behind locked doors. But most of all I thought about Martha. He had trusted them too. He had lasted, weeks? Months? And then she disappeared. At breakfast the next morning I found Eliot already seated, staring at his black coffee like it owed him something. "You look like hell," he said. I didn't sleep. Why not? I kept hearing things. He looked up, eyes narrowing. What kind of things? Machinery. Behind the walls. And footsteps. In the west wing. He didn't answer. He just studied me with that unreadable expression he always wore when he was deciding whether or not I was worth his time. "You shouldn't be wandering off," he said finally. "Not everything in this house is meant for you. But I'm living here. Doesn't mean you're invited into every room." I waited. Is Martha still alive? His fingers tightened slightly around his coffee cup. Just for a second. Then relaxed. "Don't ask questions you're not prepared to hear answers to." "That sounds like a yes." He gave me a long, heavy stare. "It sounds like a warning." When I didn't back down, he pushed back from the table and wheeled himself toward the door. "You'll be on your own for lunch." I didn't see him again for 2 days. Darlene claimed he was sick, but I knew a stone wall when I saw one. He was hiding. Or protecting something. Or someone. On the second night, I went back to the piano bench and found a second note folded under the cushion where the letter had been. They make you doubt yourself. That's the first step. Then they isolate you. By the time you realize what's happening, it's too late. Don't let them turn you into the next cautionary tale. Don't eat anything they give you when you're alone. My stomach dropped. That morning's breakfast had been served to me in the solarium, alone, because Darlene said Eliot was still unwell and Camilla had left for a business retreat. I hadn't eaten much. Just the fruit. Some toast. But my head had started pounding an hour later. A sick hot pressure behind my eyes. I'd blamed the stress. The air. Even my own paranoia. But now. Well, I had to know. I took what was left of the fruit and toast and sealed it in a plastic sandwich bag I found in the pantry. Then I slipped it into my coat pocket and waited until everyone was distracted. While Darlene rearranged the dining room flowers and the groundskeeper revved up a power washer outside, I slipped out the front door and made the 15-minute walk down the gravel drive to the gate. I hadn't seen a single townsperson since I arrived, but I remembered a sign for Haven Ridge General on the way in. I walked another hour until I reached it, feet aching, breath sharp. The woman behind the counter looked up, surprised. I must have looked a mess. I need something tested, I said, pushing the bag across the counter. Please. Just tell me if it's safe. She eyed it warily. You think someone's poisoning you? I don't know, I said, voice cracking. But I can't go back there without knowing. She didn't ask questions. Just took it and nodded. Come back tomorrow. When I returned to the estate, Darlene was waiting. You took a walk, she said evenly. I needed air. You left without permission. I wasn't aware I was a prisoner. You're not, she said. But you are a guest. And guests are expected to follow the rules. I stared at her, at the thin curve of her lips and the edge in her voice, and I realized she didn't believe a word she was saying. She wasn't in charge here. She was a pawn, just like I had been. Just like Martha. That night I heard the humming again. Louder. Like it was right under my bed. I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until midnight, then crept back down the hallway, through the conservatory and into the west wing. I didn't bother being quiet. I was past the point of caring. The humming led me to a locked door. This time I brought something with me, an old butter knife I'd sharpened on the stone steps near the garden. I wedged it into the lock and jiggled it until the tumblers gave. The door swung open. And I gasped. It wasn't a room. It was an elevator. Old-fashioned, narrow, with rust along the seams. I stepped inside and pressed the only lit button. B. The descent was slow. Grinding. The lights flickered the entire way down. When the doors opened, I stepped into something straight out of a nightmare. A hallway. Cement floors. Fluorescent lights. Cold. Too cold. And doors. Lined on both sides. Steel doors. Reinforced. Like cells. Some were empty. Others weren't. I saw beds. Medical equipment. 4 poles. One room had a nameplate outside. Faulkner. And inside was a wheelchair. Strapped down. No patient. Just restraints. I backed away, heart in my throat, just as a sound echoed from down the hall. Footsteps. Coming closer. I turned and ran, pounding back into the elevator, slamming the door shut, jamming the button until it groaned back to life. As the doors began to close, I caught a glimpse, just a shadow. Watching. Waiting. By the time I reached my room, I was shaking so hard I could barely turn the lock. They weren't just gaslighting me. They were keeping people here. I didn't know if Martha had escaped or something worse. But I knew now, I was never supposed to make it out of this place whole. And whatever they were planning for me, it had already begun. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hallway. The steel doors. The nameplate with Martha's name on it. I kept hearing the sound of restraints clinking and that steady, low hum pulsing beneath the floors of the estate like a mechanical heartbeat. Something terrible was happening in that basement, had happened, and the worst part was, no one would believe me if I told them. Who would? No one even knew where I was. My family had stopped checking in after the breakup with Daniel. I'd pushed them away out of shame. I hadn't told any friends I'd left the state. I didn't even have social media anymore, not since I'd been harassed for being in on the scam, when Daniel disappeared with our money. And now I was here. A prisoner in a mansion where secrets were buried deeper than the foundation. The next morning I walked into the kitchen expecting silence, but Darlene was already there. Her posture was as rigid as ever, but something in her eyes had shifted. Her usual mask of indifference had cracked just slightly, revealing something that looked like concern, or maybe suspicion. You didn't show up for breakfast. I wasn't hungry. She poured coffee into a cup and slid it across the counter toward me. You'll need your strength. That stopped me cold. I didn't touch the cup. Instead I forced a smile. Thanks. She turned back to the stove, but I didn't miss the way her gaze followed me when I left. Not curiosity. Watchfulness. I spent the morning trying to act normal. I reviewed Eliot's therapy notes, did a few light cleaning tasks, reorganized some medical supplies. My body moved on autopilot, but my mind raced in every direction. I couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was coming for me. Every creak of the stairs made me flinch. Every shadow under a doorframe felt like a threat. I didn't see Eliot all day. Not until nightfall. I was walking past the second-floor study when I heard voices behind the closed door. Not raised. Not arguing. But urgent. We're running out of time, said Camilla. Her voice had an edge to it, like she'd finally dropped the performative civility. "She knows," Eliot replied. "Or at least she suspects. You were supposed to keep her distracted. She's not like the others. You say that every time. And then what happens? They dig too deep. They get curious. And they force our hand." There was a silence. Then Camilla added, quieter, "Do you want her to end up like Martha?" Another pause. Then a chair scraped the floor. I backed away quickly, nearly tripping over a decorative vase near the wall, and ducked around the corner just as the door opened. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath, listening to the sound of Camilla's heels clicking down the hallway like a countdown to something I didn't want to know. When the coast was clear, I slipped away, heart hammering. They were talking about me. Eliot was supposed to keep me distracted. Camilla was planning something, and whatever happened to Martha was the end goal. It wasn't just gaslighting anymore. It was a setup. And I was the next victim. Later that night, I called the general store from the landline in the pantry while Darlene was busy folding linens upstairs. The woman from the day before answered after 3 rings. "I tested it," she said without waiting for me to speak. "There's something in the fruit." "What kind of something?" "Sedatives. Unprescribed. Pretty strong too. If you'd eaten the whole serving, you would have blacked out within the hour." My knees buckled and I had to sit down on the cold tile floor. "Thank you," I whispered. "I'll hold on to the results. But if you're in trouble, you need to get out of there. Places like that, they're built to keep things in, not let people out." I hung up the phone in a daze. They tried to drug me. But why? To move me? Frame me? Make me forget something? That night I packed a bag. I wasn't leaving yet, but I needed to be ready. Just in case. I stuffed Martha's letter, the photos, and the test result printout from the general store into the lining of my tote bag, along with a change of clothes and every dollar I had left, $72.13. But when I opened my closet to grab a sweater, I found something that didn't belong. My nursing bag, the one I'd brought from Philly, was unzipped. Not just opened but rifled through. The contents were rearranged. The zipper tag was bent. I never left it like that. Someone had been in my room. And this time they were searching for something. I didn't sleep. I stayed up, fully dressed, watching the door, my tote bag gripped in my lap like a lifeline. At 2:13 a.m. I heard the elevator. That old elevator, the one that led to the basement. It groaned and whined, the metal grinding slowly. Then silence. Someone had gone down. Or come up. I waited another hour before creeping out of my room. The house was still. Too still. I made my way to Eliot's quarters. I wasn't sure why. Maybe I wanted to confront him. Maybe I wanted answers. Maybe I was hoping, stupidly, that the version of him I'd seen glimpses of during therapy was still real. His door was ajar. I stepped inside. The bed was empty. No sign of him. No wheelchair. But the fireplace was on, casting flickers across the walls, and the book on his desk was still warm to the touch. He'd just been here. But where was he now? I turned to leave and froze. There, behind the door, was a panel in the wall. A secret passage. It was slightly open, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. I hesitated. Then I stepped inside. The passage smelled like dust and metal and mold. The walls were narrow. Claustrophobic. I moved slowly, trying not to make noise, my heart slamming against my ribcage with every step. At the bottom, the passage opened into a small room, one I'd never seen before. There was a desk. Surveillance monitors. A filing cabinet. A single flickering bulb overhead. And on the monitors I saw everything. The basement hallway. The therapy room. The west wing. My room. Cameras. Everywhere. I scanned the labels. Bedroom 3. Solarium. Caretaker quarters. They'd been watching me. Recording me. For how long? I backed away, my breath catching, the world tilting around me. And then I saw the file on the desk. Labeled, each, Quinn Phase 2. My name. My file. With shaking hands I opened it. Inside were pages of notes. Observations. Logs of my behavior, timestamps of my movements, even transcribed conversations. Notes like, reacted defensively to medication discrepancy. May suspect surveillance. Initiate isolation protocol. There was a final page, unsigned but in Camilla's handwriting. Subject shows similar profile to Faulkner. Risk of escalation high. Recommend extraction by end of week. Discredit if necessary. Discredit. Just like Martha. They were setting me up to take a fall. Maybe for theft. Maybe for negligence. Maybe worse. I didn't hear the door open behind me, but I felt the cold barrel of something press against the back of my neck. You should have left well enough alone, Camilla whispered. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. She chuckled softly like this was just a minor inconvenience. You were smarter than the others. I'll give you that. But curiosity isn't intelligence, Harper. It's ego. And ego gets people buried. She reached past me and snatched the file from the desk. That's mine. I turned slowly, keeping my hands visible. What do you want from me? Camilla smiled, cool and unhurried. What we've always wanted. Compliance. Silence. People who do their jobs and don't go snooping around in places they don't belong. You drugged me. We protected you. From yourself. You were spiraling, Harper. And frankly, the psychological profile we pulled suggests you've had breakdowns before. It's not hard to plant a story when there's already a seed. My stomach twisted. You're going to fake a breakdown. It's easier than you'd think. You already look the part. Paranoid, erratic, sneaking around in the night. You've been isolated. Unstable. And the footage we've collected? Let's just say it's very interpretive. My hands curled into fists. Where's Eliot? Resting. I had to sedate him. He got emotional. You said he was in on it. Camilla's smile faltered. He was. Until you. I stared at her, at the perfectly polished veneer cracking around the edges. She wasn't untouchable. Not really. Not anymore. Because I wasn't just scared now. I was angry. And anger burns louder than fear. You'll never get away with this, I said, stepping back. She raised her hand, but I was faster. I grabbed the chair beside me and swung it hard, knocking the gun from her hand and sending her sprawling backward. I didn't wait. I bolted up the stairs, through the hidden passage and straight to the nearest landline. My fingers dialed the only number I could remember from the general store. Help, I said breathlessly. This is Harper Quinn. Call the state police. Send them to Blackwell Estate. There's a secret basement. There's evidence. Please, hurry. I dropped the phone as footsteps thundered behind me. It was Darlene. And she didn't look confused anymore. She looked ready to kill me. The look on Darlene's face wasn't confusion. It wasn't even rage. It was something colder, resignation. Like this wasn't the first time she'd had to handle a problem like me. Put the phone down, Harper, she said calmly, stepping into the hallway. The receiver was already swinging from its cord, but I didn't move. My chest rose and fell in sharp jerks as my eyes scanned the hallway for anything I could use as a weapon. The umbrella stand was too far. The decorative bowl of oranges wouldn't do much. But there was a broken lamp at the edge of the staircase with a jagged ceramic base. I darted toward it. Don't, Darlene warned. I snatched the base off the floor and held it out in front of me, the sharp point trembling in my grip. Stay back. She didn't flinch. I liked you, Harper. You were kind. Quiet. I thought maybe this time it wouldn't go sideways. What are you talking about? I hissed. What is this place? She sighed and stepped closer, unbothered by the weapon in my hands. It's a place for broken people. And broken people need to be managed. Quietly. Efficiently. That's what this estate is. A sanctuary. A solution. A vault. A prison, I snapped. You locked Martha in the basement. She was a danger to herself, Darlene said, voice growing taut. And to Mr. Blackwell. Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night? She tried to kill him. The words hit me like a slap. What? She pushed him down the stairs. That's how he ended up in the chair. She snapped. Thought he was conspiring against her. Said he was replacing her with someone loyal. My mind reeled. That's not what she wrote. And you believed a note you found stuffed in a piano bench over a man's medical records? Darlene's eyes narrowed. You don't know the full story, Harper. You only know the parts she wanted you to see. She warned me. She manipulated you, Darlene spat. Just like she did him. Just like you're doing now. I didn't hurt anyone. No, she agreed. Not yet. But that's how it always starts. With suspicion. Then fear. Then violence. I gripped the lamp base tighter. I'm not her. She paused. For the first time, something like doubt flickered in her eyes. And in that second of hesitation, I ran. Not up the stairs, she'd expect that. I went for the side hallway, the one that led to the greenhouse and out toward the northern edge of the property. I'd seen the groundskeeper leave through there once. "Harper!" she shouted behind me. My feet pounded across the tile, slippery with panic. I burst through the greenhouse door, slamming it shut behind me and jamming a rusted broom through the handle to wedge it shut. The glass panes rattled as she banged against the door. I sprinted through rows of potted plants and cracked watering cans, barely registering the warm, earthy scent of soil and wet leaves. My breath came in ragged bursts as I pushed out the far side and into the night. The woods loomed ahead, thick, black, endless. But somewhere out there was the main road. Somewhere out there were headlights, phone signals, witnesses. I ran. Branches clawed at my arms. Mud sucked at my shoes. My lungs burned. I didn't stop. Not when I heard footsteps behind me. Not when I saw shadows moving between the trees. I just kept running. And then I heard it. A motor. A low, humming growl. A vehicle. I stumbled onto the gravel path that led to the estate gate just as headlights came into view. I waved my arms wildly, screaming, "Help! Please! Stop!" The SUV screeched to a halt. And the driver's side door opened. Camilla stepped out, brushing a strand of perfect hair behind her ear. My heart plummeted. "Going somewhere?" she asked, her voice low, dangerous. I turned to run, too late. The groundskeeper stepped out from the trees behind me, grabbing my arm and yanking me backward. I screamed, twisting, kicking. My foot connected with something, maybe his shin, maybe his stomach, but it only made him grunt and grip tighter. "Sedate her," Camilla ordered, already opening the back door of the SUV. "No," I thrashed. "Don't touch me." The syringe flashed under the moonlight. I screamed louder. But then, a gunshot. The groundskeeper collapsed beside me with a scream, clutching his leg. Camilla dove behind the SUV. I looked up, stunned. Eliot stood at the top of the drive, his chair half tilted from the force of the gun he'd just fired. His hands were shaking. His eyes were locked on Camilla. "You're not touching her," he said. Camilla stood slowly, hands raised. "Eliot, she's unstable. She broke into the basement. You saw the tapes." "I saw everything," he said. "Including the part where you drugged her food. Where you forged her behavior logs. Where you told Darlene to isolate her. She's dangerous." "She's right." Camilla's face twisted just for a second before her smile slid back into place. "You're confused," she said. "You've always had a soft spot for lost girls. First Martha, now her. You don't see it yet, but she'll turn on you too. They always do." "She's not Martha." "No," Camilla said. "But she will be." Eliot lifted the gun again. "Get off my property." For a moment I thought she'd call his bluff. But then she glanced at the bleeding groundskeeper and the headlights now visible in the distance. Someone else was coming. The police. The store clerk had made the call. Help was really coming. Camilla stepped back slowly. "This isn't over," she said. "Yes, it is," Eliot replied. She got into the SUV and drove off, tires kicking up gravel. I collapsed onto the ground, shaking. Eliot rolled over, the gun lowering as he reached me. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. I knew Camilla was pushing limits. I didn't realize how far she'd gone until I saw the surveillance backup. "You kept footage?" "Encrypted. Off-site. I wanted leverage. I never thought I'd have to use it against my own sister. You saved my life." He looked away. "Too late for the others." "What happened to Martha?" "She's alive. Camilla had her committed to a private facility under a fake psychiatric file. It was easier than dealing with the fallout." "Can she be freed?" "With the evidence we have now?" "Yes." I nodded slowly. "Then we do it. We go to the police. We take this whole place down." He didn't answer for a long time. Then finally he said, "Okay." The officers arrived 12 minutes later. Camilla was already gone, but the security footage, the notes, the test results, the drugged fruit, they had enough. And Eliot? He told them everything. I spent the night at a motel in town under protective custody. Eliot gave me his lawyer's number. The next morning, the facility Martha had been hidden in was raided. She was found, drugged but alive. She didn't recognize me, but when I handed her the letter she'd written and told her I'd read it, her eyes filled with tears. I was the one who got her out. And I would make sure they never buried someone else again. Camilla disappeared. The media exploded. Blackwell Holdings went into PR crisis mode. Darlene was arrested and confessed everything. She cried in court. Said she was trying to protect Eliot from people like Martha and me. People who couldn't handle rejection. The public wasn't sympathetic. Eliot stepped down from the board and released a full statement, admitting the truth. He claimed responsibility for failing to see how the systems around him had been abused. It was carefully worded. But it was more than most people in his position ever offered. I could have hated him. Part of me still wanted to. But another part of me saw something else. Guilt. Grief. Someone who wanted to do better but didn't know how to undo the past. He offered me a settlement. Enough to rebuild my life. Start over. I didn't take it. I wanted justice, not hush money. Instead, I worked with a journalist to tell the story. The real story. About what happens when power is hidden behind gates and people disappear because no one thinks to look for them. We exposed the estate, the underground hallway, the fake medical files, the surveillance. The article went viral. It was called, "The House Where They Locked Us In." And I signed my name at the bottom. Harper Quinn. Former nurse. Former caretaker. Survivor. People always think the worst part is over once the truth comes out. They think exposure is freedom. That when the bad guy is cornered, when the police come, when the cameras roll and the world finally knows your name, you get to breathe again. They don't tell you that the real horror starts when the noise fades. I thought escaping the estate would mean the end. I thought I'd won. But what they don't tell you about surviving is how lonely it is. How hard it is to feel safe when you've been hunted. How hard it is to trust when someone looked you in the eye and tried to turn you into a ghost. Camilla Blackwell wasn't in custody. She'd vanished. And for every piece of evidence Eliot and I handed over, every forged file, every surveillance recording, every sedative test result, there were lawyers just as powerful spinning their own version of the truth. Misunderstandings. Exaggerations. Unstable witness. Me. They said I was unstable. They dug up my past. My financial problems, the relationship with Daniel, the panic attack I'd had in an ER during a shift last year. They painted me like a woman on the edge, desperate for relevance, for money, for revenge. The articles didn't call me a liar outright. But they left enough room for doubt. I saw the comments. Sounds like she's making it all up. Why take a job like that if she had trauma? I bet she was in on it and flipped when the money dried up. It didn't matter that Martha had been rescued. That her story matched mine detail for detail. She was fragile. They dismissed her to a footnote. A sad case. But we weren't sad. We were angry. The reporter I worked with, Emily Prescott, ran the exposé with full integrity. She stood by me. Let me tell everything, even the parts that made me look scared, unsure, human. The article made waves. For a week I got interview requests. A podcast deal. People called me brave. Then the media moved on. And I was left in a studio apartment in Albany with creaky floors, a broken heater, and nightmares that left me breathless in the dark. Eliot called sometimes. Not often. I could tell he didn't know where he stood anymore. A man who once commanded boardrooms now sat in a small condo with no staff, no cameras, and 100 unanswered questions about the life he'd lived. He was rebuilding. So was I. I took a job at a local clinic. Quiet work. Mostly paperwork, some intake interviews. I didn't mention the Blackwell estate. I didn't tell my coworkers who I was. I let them think Harper Quinn was just another woman trying to get by. Until the envelope came. It was hand-delivered to the front desk of the clinic. No return address. Just my name in delicate script. Inside was a single photo. Of me. Taken 2 nights ago standing outside my building. On the back was one word. Soon. I froze. The hallway around me went silent. I could hear my own pulse, deafening in my ears. I tucked the photo into my bag and walked straight out of the clinic without a word. I made it halfway down the street before I realized I was shaking. I hadn't told anyone where I lived. I hadn't posted online. I'd changed my number, changed my hair, even switched banks. But someone had found me. She had found me. Camilla. It had to be her. I took the long way home, looping through 4 blocks and ducking into a bodega to pretend shop before circling back. I didn't see anyone following me. But then again, she was good at hiding in plain sight. She'd been doing it her whole life. Inside my apartment, I locked every bolt and slid the heavy dresser in front of the door. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept beside the bed and sat on the couch with my back to the wall. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, the photo had multiplied. Another one slid under my door. This time it was a picture of the clinic. Captioned, "Nice job. Shame if something happened to it." I called Emily. She picked up on the second ring. "Harper. She's back." Silence. Then, "You're sure?" She sent me photos. Of me. Where I work. "She's watching." "Jesus. I need help. I'll come to you." She showed up 3 hours later with coffee, a recorder, and a lockbox full of every file she'd kept from the Blackwell investigation. "I've been hearing whispers," she said. "A few people from the estate, low-level staff, have vanished. Disappeared completely. It's like someone's tying off loose ends." "I'm not a loose end," I said. "You are to Camilla." She opened her laptop. "We go public again. Loud. Big. You give another statement. We build pressure. Force the police to reclassify her as a high-risk fugitive." "She's not going to run," I said. "She's going to come for me." Emily looked at me carefully. "Then we stay ahead of her." We got to work. We compiled timestamps, photos, messages, even Eliot's voicemails. I went on record again. This time I didn't cry. This time I wasn't scared. This time I was done hiding. The new piece dropped within a week. It was everywhere. Morning talk shows, online headlines, trending hashtags. The woman Camilla Blackwell couldn't silence. And it worked. The pressure mounted. The police reopened the case. A warrant was issued. Camilla's frozen assets were unfrozen, revealing shell companies, unregistered properties, and secret accounts tied to offshore transfers. But none of that prepared me for what I found outside my apartment the next night. A box. Wrapped in brown paper. Inside a single item. The piano key. From the estate. The same one that had been broken, missing, from the bench where I'd found Martha's letter. Attached was a card. "We're not finished, Harper." I dropped it. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I grabbed my bat, stormed into the hallway and searched every stairwell, every alley, every dumpster. She wasn't there. But someone had been. The next day I went to Eliot. He was thinner. Paler. But his voice was still sharp when he needed it to be. "She's escalating," I said. "She always does when she's cornered. I want to set a trap." He arched an eyebrow. "Explain." "We leak a story. A fake one. About a cache of files. Documents even you didn't know about. Say I found them. Say I'm planning to turn them over to the feds." He looked at me for a long time. "That's dangerous. She'll come out of hiding. She might come to kill you." I didn't blink. Let her try. The story went live 48 hours later. It included a fake quote from me. "What we found makes the rest look like child's play." Emily wrote it. We released it through a smaller, independent outlet. Less polished, less corporate. The kind Camilla would assume didn't vet sources. And then we waited. I didn't go home. I stayed in a rented loft with a security system and a panic button. But the real trap wasn't the loft. It was me. 3 nights later the alarm triggered. Motion sensor. Window access point. One body. Female. Mid-30s. Wearing gloves. She moved fast, silent, professional. I let her reach the office. Let her open the drawer where the files were planted. Then I stepped out of the shadows with the recorder already running. "Hello, Camilla." She froze. Turned slowly. And smiled. "Took you long enough." The police were waiting 2 floors below. They'd been tailing the place since dusk. But Camilla didn't resist. She looked me dead in the eye as they handcuffed her and said, "You should have stayed scared." I stepped forward. "No. You should have." The day Camilla Blackwell was officially booked into custody, it rained. Not the gentle kind that smells like clean pavement and new beginnings, but the cold, soaking kind that makes everything feel heavier. The sky hung low and gray like it had been waiting for this moment longer than I had. I watched her from the courthouse window. Her head was held high, that same calculating grace in every step. Handcuffs didn't shake her. Neither did the cameras. She didn't see a defeat. She saw a delay. I knew that look. She still thought she could win. Camilla wasn't wired for surrender. People like her don't sit in silence and rot. They plot. They adapt. And when the system turns against them, they find cracks in it. Then they crawl through. It didn't matter that we had evidence. That Eliot testified. That Martha's facility was shut down. That 2 more victims came forward with stories that echoed mine, each one horrifying in its own way. Camilla pled not guilty. On every count. Fraud. Kidnapping. Unlawful imprisonment. Tampering with medical records. Abuse. Not guilty. The words made my throat burn when I heard them. Like the truth meant nothing. The court hearings became a war zone. Her lawyers were sharks in designer suits. They dissected my statements, cherry-picked my past, misquoted my interviews. They made me relive everything, again and again. The estate. The threats. The surveillance. The photos. The night I ran through the woods barefoot and terrified, heart in my throat. Every time I got off the stand, I felt like I was bleeding invisibly. One day during a break, I passed her in the hallway. Just her and me, escorted by guards. She smiled at me, smiled like we were 2 colleagues in on a joke. "They'll forget you," she said under her breath. "In a month you'll be old news. And I'll still be Camilla Blackwell." I didn't blink. "Not when you're an orange." She didn't flinch. "Orange isn't forever. But your name will always be second to mine." It was meant to rattle me. It didn't. Because I'd learned something about power. Real power isn't status. Or money. Or control. Real power is surviving. Real power is standing in front of someone who tried to destroy you, and not just still breathing but still fighting. And I was. Every damn day. Emily's reporting led to a federal investigation. New victims came forward from Blackwell properties across the state. The story spread. The quiet caretaker case turned national. But not everyone celebrated me. There were headlines that made me grit my teeth. Nurse or nuisance. Did Harper Quinn exaggerate to make a name for herself? In the wake of Blackwell, the dangers of one-sided justice. People were afraid of what my story meant. Because if what happened to me could happen in a gated estate with crystal chandeliers and tailored suits, it could happen anywhere. The jury deliberated for 6 days. The verdict came in on a Friday. I sat in the second row behind the prosecutor. My hands were cold but my spine was straight. Martha sat beside me, frail but fierce, her fingers wrapped tightly around mine. Camilla didn't look at me as the judge read out the verdicts. Count 1, guilty. Count 2, guilty. Count 3, guilty. Every word hit like a drumbeat. When it was over, Camilla stood still, lips parted just slightly as if she hadn't really believed this day would come. Her posture didn't falter, but the light behind her eyes flickered. Just for a moment. That moment was enough. She was sentenced to 40 years without parole. As they led her out of the courtroom, I stood. She finally looked at me. There was no smile this time. Just hatred. Like I was the reason the world had turned on her. I didn't care. Because finally, she was where she belonged. But winning the war didn't erase the scars. The weeks that followed were quiet in a way that unnerved me. No threats. No envelopes. No interviews. No flashing cameras. Just silence. People expected me to move on. Heal. Rebuild. But healing isn't a switch you flip. It's 1,000 slow decisions to keep going. Some nights I still couldn't sleep unless I checked the windows 3 times. I still didn't trust anyone who walked too closely behind me on the sidewalk. I still woke up gasping, gripping the bed frame like it was the only real thing in the world. But I also started writing. Not articles. Not statements. Journals. Letters to the version of myself who had walked into that estate on day 1, still hopeful, still soft. I told her she was brave. I told her she was right to run. I told her she deserved more than just survival, she deserved peace. I started getting letters. From women. From nurses. Teachers. Caregivers. Interns. All of them thanking me. All of them saying they knew someone like Camilla. Some of them said they had been Camilla's victim and hadn't known what to call it until they read my name. Harper Quinn. The woman who didn't stay quiet. One afternoon I got a message from Eliot. He'd moved to Maine. He was teaching part-time. Philosophy. He said he missed the garden but not the house. He asked how I was doing. I told him the truth. I'm trying. And I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted to be whole again. I visited Martha once a week. She was healing too slowly. She didn't talk much, but every now and then she'd smile. The kind of smile that says I'm still here. We'd sit in silence and share tea. Some days she'd hum a melody I didn't recognize but felt familiar. It took me 3 months to play the piano again. When I finally did, it was on a borrowed keyboard in a community center. My hands trembled. But when the first note filled the room, something inside me clicked back into place. I wasn't the same woman I had been. But maybe that was okay. One day as I locked up my apartment, I found an envelope slipped through my door. My stomach dropped. My breath caught. The old fear surged back like a punch. I picked it up slowly. Inside was a note. Typed, "Thank you for giving us our voices back. You are not alone." It wasn't Martha. It wasn't Camilla. It was someone else. One of the women who had read my story. Someone I might never meet. But that was the moment I understood. This wasn't just my story anymore. It belonged to everyone who'd been silenced, cornered, manipulated. Everyone who had second-guessed themselves until their reality cracked. Everyone who had been told to sit down and shut up while power twisted around them like a noose. And every single one of us had the right to fight back. The next time someone asks me what I do, I won't say caretaker. I won't say nurse. I'll say survivor, truth teller, watchdog. And maybe one day I'll say free. But for now I'm Harper Quinn. And they'll never silence me again. If this story gripped you, made you feel something, or reminded you of your own strength, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that matters. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'd love to know who's out there. Your support means everything. Let's keep shining light on the truths they tried to bury.